Welcome to Dear Prudence. I'm your Prudence, Jenée Desmond-Harris. Today we'll be discussing whether to report a coworker's insensitive gym behavior to HR, and how to deal with a mom who forgets to take her medication and immediately uses a racial slur. Here to help me out is the writer and professor Kiese Laymon. He's the author of the award-winning books and essay collections Long Division, How to Slowly Kill Yourself and Others in America, and Heavy, an American Memoir. He's also the founder of the Catherine Coleman Literary Arts and Justice Initiative. And last but not least, he was awarded a MacArthur Fellowship in 2022. Welcome.
Hey, Jenée, I'm happy to be here with you.
I'm thrilled to have you here. And before we get started, I can't wait to ask you for one piece of unsolicited advice.
Oh, wow. I think today I would just want to say, pick up more trash than you leave. I just think picking up more trash than you leave is a pretty good way to live in a relationship with a partner, the earth, a child, whomever. But yeah, please pick up more trash than you leave.
I like that. I'm going to see how that fits into our letters because people are kind of leaving trash here and there.
That's right. That's right.
So Kiese and I will dive into your questions after a short break. Can't get enough Dear Prudence? Then you should definitely join Slate Plus, Slate's membership program. You'll get to hear me answer an extra question every week just for members. With your subscription, you get ad-free listening across the Slate network and unlimited reading on the Slate site, including all Dear Prudence columns, past and present. Go to slate.com/Prudie Plus to sign up. It's just $15 for your first 3 months. Again, that's slate.com/Prudie Plus. This episode is brought to you by Fail Better, David Duchovny's new podcast with Lemonada Media. On Fail Better, David, who's experienced both low and high profile failures throughout his life, explores the vast world of failure, how it holds us back, propels us forward, and ultimately shapes our lives. Each week, he'll chat with guests like Ben Stiller, Bette Midler, and more about how our perceived failures have actually been our biggest catalyst for growth, revelation, and even healing. Through these conversations, he hopes listeners can learn how to embrace the opportunity of failure and fail better together. Fail Better is out now, wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome back. You're listening to Dear Prudence, and I'm here with Kiese Laymon. Let's get started with our first letter. It's titled Conflicted Daughter.
About a month ago, my mother and I drove to a grocery store about 45 minutes away from home since we live in a rural area and don't have access to a wide range of food. That day, my mother had forgotten to take her medication, which helps stabilize her mood and control her anxiety. My mother tends to become a different person off her medication. She's stubborn, quick to anger, and generally quite volatile when she forgets to take it. Our drive out of town was tense enough. We got into an extended argument surrounding a musician who uses they-them pronouns, a concept that has taken her a while to understand. However, right as we were driving into the grocery store parking lot, my mother did something that even I found unprecedented. While telling a story about a friend with whom she had encountered some friction, she used a racial slur while talking about that friend in question. I should emphasize that while my mother is generally conservative, this is out of character for her. Ever since the global outcry that emerged after the 2020 George Floyd murder, my mother took pains to examine the racism she perpetuated in her daily life and even became more observant of racism around her. After I heard her use this word, I made sure to let her know how appalled I was, and we fought the whole way home. She had the audacity to say that she had, quote, never been racist in her entire life, and then attacked me for caring about causes related to social justice. She expressed regret over her behavior later that night, but her acknowledgement of wrongdoing was extremely half-hearted. Ever since this incident occurred, she seems to be pretending that it never even happened, reaching out to me jovially and joking around whenever we're together. I am currently 19 years old, and I have always had a close relationship with my mother. I'm an only child, and my father died by suicide when I was 3. In other words, my mother and I have relied on each other for as long as I can remember. I don't live with her at the moment, but I do live very close by, and we've seen each other a few times since the incident, in part because my aunt and her family came to visit for Easter. I've been trying to keep the peace between us, not wanting to cause fights that will only make the situation worse, but I've also been keeping my distance from her, and I feel uncomfortable every time we're together. I know I should remember that she wasn't in the best frame of mind when this racist incident occurred, but the fact that she could behave like this at all deeply disturbs me. I've been worried about her mental health for a couple of years now, and I'm concerned that if I push her away when she's already an isolated person, I'll only further exacerbate her propensity for such behavior. Still, if anyone else in my life said such a thing, I would cut them off without a second thought. How should I respond to this situation?
This fact pattern comes up a lot in the letters I get. There are so many people who have realized there's something they really, really don't like about one of their loved ones, but they still want to figure out a way to maintain a relationship with them. But it's not because they enjoy their company or admire them or think they're a great person. They just want the relationship because, we're human. And I really feel for people who have this realization that there are things they dislike about a family member who is kind of all they have or they really desperately want to be close to. And I know a 19-year-old whose father died by suicide is not going to just cut her mom off over being a racist.
Right.
With that in mind, what is she supposed to do?
In some ways, this is a tough one, but in other ways, it's sort of not so tough. But I'll give the tough reading first. On one hand, I think that if you love a parent or any sort of person in your life, I think you fight and love and care to the end if that person is doing something or believes something that you think is catastrophic, harmful, unfair, right? Mm-hmm. Like I really believe that. And I understand that what this person is saying, which is like, I don't want to push my mom away. I think we have to be very cognizant of mental health at all times for sure. But at the same time, I just think you push and you push and push. The flip side is, I've been writing a lot about friendship and family lately and the way we conflate them sometimes. And I think sometimes people are like, oh, chosen family. But, the older I get, I don't really want to rock with too many parts of my family that haven't committed to friendship. You know what I'm saying? I think being a family member and being a friend are two vastly different things. And at this old stage in my life, you know what I'm saying? I'm saying this is why I'm saying this. What I don't feel comfortable saying to this 19-year-old is that at 50, I don't really have much time to commit to older people who have been chosen to be bad friends to me in my family. So cutting family off, okay, yeah, but maybe accepting like bad friendship doesn't need to be reciprocated with good friendship. And I think in this situation, being a great friend would be, listen, Ma, can we really talk? How can we talk about what you said if you won't even accept that what you said is part of who you are? And, I think friendship is open to critique, and the 19-year-old needs to be open to critique too. So at this stage of my life, I would just be like, I'm sorry, Mom. I can't talk to you until you reckon with that. Because that, you know what I mean? Like, because I don't have what it takes to be the friend that you need, and you definitely don't have what it takes to be the friend I need either.
I think the conversation has to take place, letter writer, when your mom is properly medicated, not agitated, not feeling defensive, and not coming off another fight about transphobia. Get her when she's in a really good place. And what makes me hopeful is what you said, letter writer, about your mom's interest in reckoning with her own racism around the time of the George Floyd murder. So I think there's a nugget of good intentions there that we can tap into. Now, don't get me wrong. We all know that a lot of people posted a black square on Instagram or checked on their black friend or did whatever, and it wasn't totally sincere. But I'm hopeful that there's some part of your mom who wants to be someone who doesn't hurt others and needs to understand that using racial slurs is not part of the life she wants to lead, right? I have a feeling if we had cut through the defensiveness and her feeling attacked, she might be willing to apologize and change course. So I don't know if the conversation is, I know you're better than this because I've seen these behaviors from you, or I just want you to know how it made me feel. But that doesn't mean that there's not still room for you to improve. I just have to get out my least generous, least helpful thought is that if this mom was truly bothered by racism and how it hurts people, she would not have been, quote unquote, mainly conservative for her whole life.
Right.
And then we also have like the anti-trans thing. Like,
right.
There's a lot here in terms of her whole worldview that is going to be a lot to grapple with. But maybe going back to what you said about friendship, maybe the letter writer's goal can be to get the mom to a place of being a better friend, of trying, of wanting to be a better friend, not being a person who has a completely different mindset and is totally healed from racism.
Absolutely. And I think the letter writer needs her mother to be better and / be a better friend to herself and to her. Do you know what I mean? There are times in my life, I remember when I was a kid, I said to someone in my family who I looked up to, and they were trying to talk about bisexuality. I was like 11, and they were like, bisexual means you have sex with two people at the same time. And then I was like, no, that's not what that means. And they were like, no, I'm telling you what it means. And I'm like, no, that's not what it means. But you know what I mean? And as much as I wanted to change that person's opinion, I really needed that person to change their opinion so I could trust in the love that they would give me going forward. You know what I mean? And sometimes kids are just right. In that situation, I was right. I was wrong probably 100 times before that, and I was wrong after, but I was not wrong about bisexuality.
Right.
And in that situation, I needed that person, that older person in my family, to actually realize that what they said was wrong and maybe reckon with why they wanted to believe it. Because that would have been better selfishly for me as a young person who had to grow under that person.
Or even for a start, just to listen to you and take you seriously.
Absolutely.
Instead of writing you off altogether. You know who I'm really worried about in this scenario? The mom's friend. Like, the mom has a friend who I assume is Black, because that's the most common slur we hear about. And she had a dispute with them, and she was one missed dose of medication away from calling that person the N-word.
Oh, yeah.
What is going on in that relationship? What is going on in the relationships that this woman has with other people in her life? I do think one practical way, letter writer, you might be able to feel a little bit better about this situation is trying to think about how to protect the people your mom interacts with, which it sounds like she may be getting older, caregivers, doctors, others, from the racism she may deploy, right? So maybe you can't fix her heart and mind, but you could do a little bit of damage control. I don't know, warning people about her, giving her reminders before she interacts with people. I just don't want too many more people who aren't her daughter, who loves her, to be on the receiving end of these kinds of outbursts.
Absolutely.
Especially if it really is a mental health issue and she really can't control them.
And the further we get from whatever we want to call the uprising of 2020, the further we get from it, the more people are really showing their ass, right? Like, the amount of emails I get and DMs from people saying, I stood up for you when George Floyd was murdered.
Yeah.
On one hand, whatever people did, they want us to believe that delivered them from investments in anti-Blackness. And then we're also supposed to believe that we should give to those folks because they did something for us in realizing that George Floyd's murder was a heinous.
Right.
So
the mom might think she has enough credits in the bank from the work
That's
she did during
right.
that year, that summer.
It's a video game.
And now she can lash out a little bit.
That's right.
So, letter writer, this is tough. Also, just to put a frame around it, I want you to understand that the options aren't turn your mom into a fully formed anti-racist or cut her off. There is a middle ground, and I think the goal for the middle ground should not be how do you fix your mom, because that's very much out of your control, especially considering whatever's going on with her mind and her medication. But how can you feel good about yourself? So maybe that means committing to calling this stuff out every time you hear it, committing to trying to educate her a little bit, making sure you don't bring your Black friends around her, or, trying to make sure that whatever her views may be, that they don't cause actual harm. If you're absorbing some of them, maybe someone else isn't. And maybe that's a good thing. You don't have to abandon your mom. I feel terrible that you're in this situation. And recruit other family members to help too. You don't want to be too reliant on one loved one. So it sounds like you have an aunt and you have other people Tell them what you're going through, ask for their support. I think this should be a team effort. You're listening to the Dear Prudence Show, and when we come back, we'll be reading more of your letters. Stay with us. Elevate your romantic retreat with Cozy Earth's luxurious bedding and loungewear, bringing the warmth and intimacy of home wherever your love takes you. Enjoy an exclusive 35% off discount to experience the unmatched softness and indulgent texture of Cozy Earth's bedding. Use the code Dear Prudence at checkout at cozyearth.com. So I just got my sheets last week, which, by the way, came in a really cute little tote bag that I will be using as a purse. They're super soft. I haven't slept on them, but they've been guest room tested, and my mother-in-law said they were extremely, extremely comfortable and seemed expensive. I've been using the satin pillowcases for protecting my hair at night, so anyone else who doesn't want to damage their curls by sleeping on cotton or something else horrible should definitely try them out. Say goodbye to travel woes with Cozy Earth's travel-friendly bedding. Whether you're exploring exotic destinations or enjoying a cozy staycation at home, Cozy Earth provides everything you need. Don't miss out on this exclusive offer for you and your love. Visit cozyearth.com today and use code Dear Prudence at checkout for an exclusive 35% off. And discover your next destination for ultimate comfort and connection with Cozy Earth.
For years, you asked yourself, how do I save more money? But now it's, how do I preserve my money? Someone's asking the right questions. And at Sandy Spring Trust, we'll answer them one-on-one. From asset management to legacy and estate planning, you can feel confident in what's to come. What's your next financial destination? Visit sandyspringbank.com/wealth. Wealth and insurance products are not FDIC insured, not guaranteed, and may lose value. Wealth products offered by Sandy Spring Trust, a division of Sandy Spring Bank.
Welcome back to Dear Prudence. I'm here with my guest, Kiese, to answer your letters, and the next one is titled Workout Issues.
Recently, my gym began cracking down on members playing music without headphones, to the point where people are losing their memberships for violating the rule. It turns out one of my coworkers, Richard, might be responsible for the crackdown. He admitted to me that he complained to management about people playing music in the men's locker room for some time. After college, one of my closest friends was temporarily unhoused and dependent on her gym for showers, etc. during that time. And I know this isn't uncommon, especially in a diverse urban neighborhood like where our gym is located. I told Richard that it seems really cruel to eject potentially vulnerable people from spaces like a gym for something as minor as playing tunes while showering. He literally shrugged and replied that, quote, homeless or otherwise, end quote, people should get earbuds if they want to listen to music in public. I know this isn't a work situation, but we are employed by a nonprofit that expects staff to live the values of the organization, such as compassion and empathy. Richard isn't meeting that standard. Should I talk about his actions with our HR?
I'm just imagining the scene in the HR office. This woman is sitting there going through her paperwork, trying to onboard people. Letter writer knocks on the door. There's something you need to know about Richard. He was insensitive toward unhoused people. Oh, but did it happen in a meeting? No, it happened at the gym. Oh, okay. What am I supposed to do about that? I mean, the feeling is right. Letter writer, you are the kinder, more sensitive person whose values are more aligned with the organization, but your employer does not need to know about it.
I agree. I don't think you need to highlight HR over this. But what could HR do? Like, what would HR do?
There is the line that says the nonprofit expects people to live its values. That sounds illegal and unenforceable to me. I don't know if there's some way in which they could say, oh, you're out there being unkind and insensitive. You're no longer a fit and you've got to go. I don't know. I mean, people get fired from teaching jobs for posting pictures in bikinis. So maybe there's something there. I think the key letter writer, if you want to it sounds like you really care about the people and you care about the kinds of people your nonprofit serves, and you want to make sure that the people at your organization have their minds in the right place and their hearts in the right place. And that's great. Just keep an eye on Richard at work, right? If Richard is doing something at work that is sketchy or problematic or bigoted, that's the time to kind of make a note and create a record. Just put this behavior in your pocket in your mental file about him and keep it to yourself. Make sure that you keep an eye on him. And if he does something that is part of his job duties that is harming the people your organization is supposed to serve, that's when you can go knock on the HR door.
That's great advice. Because sadly, you can't undermine your capacity to be persuasive to HR.
Right.
When you need them, if you come with things that they actually can't enforce or do anything about. Right.
Oh, totally. I mean, I know they're tired of, I know from the letters I get, they have people knocking on their door talking about someone stinks, someone chews gum too loud, someone's dating someone else and making someone else jealous. They don't really have time for all that. You got to kind of remind yourself of what their job actually is. And it's not to police everyone being a good human, even though that'd be great. I would love it if we had a good human police to make sure everyone was kind and compassionate. But until we get there, you can kind of let this one go.
I agree.
This is Dear Prudence. We need to take a break, but when we come back, more letters from you and advice from us. Stay tuned.
On Death, Sex, and Money, we feature interviews with you, our community of listeners, getting honest about uncomfortable things.
I developed an illness where it isn't safe for me to drive. A friend once said to me, sex is like air. You don't think about it until you're not getting enough. This is a similar sort of thing if you just replace sex with driving.
Listen to Death, Sex, and Money wherever you get podcasts.
I'm Jenée, and you're listening to Dear Prudence. Kiese and I are about to tackle our very last question for the day. Are you ready for it?
I'm ready.
Okay. This letter is titled, If You Love Me, Let Me Go.
I have an extremely strict traditional Baptist family. Full on, exactly what you're thinking of. Never had a sleepover, no pierced ears, never seen a horror movie, can't wear a short skirt, I'm not allowed to have a job, etc. I graduated high school early, so I'll be going to college as a minor. I found the perfect school for me, but it's out of state. I don't care. It's perfect. It has everything I want in a school. My mom wants me to go to the local Baptist college, where both my sisters go, in state, and live at home and commute. I mentioned that the out-of-state school was my front runner, and she lost her cool and started ranting about how I needed to think this through better, how I was making the wrong decision, and how everything I liked was wrong. It occurred to me, as she was talking, as a minor, she can legally make me go to the in-state Baptist school. She can legally report me as a runaway/missing person and have me dragged home by the police if I go to the other school. How do I convince her to let me go out of state to my dream Ivy school instead of being trapped in my hometown for the rest of my life? How do I convince the strictest Baptist mother you'll ever meet to let her baby 17-year-old go out of state to their dream school without completely losing her?
So, I don't know, Kiese, I feel like I chose this question for you for a dumb and superficial reason. I was like, he's from the South. He probably knows a lot of Baptists. Maybe he has some kind of experience with this kind of upbringing or people who've had it. Any pearls of wisdom?
Absolutely. I'm familiar with this sort of upbringing. It's interesting. My grandmother was that sort of person, and she believed that sending all her kids to Jackson State University was what God wanted.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But what I will say is that my advice for this one is gonna be wrong. And I feel that if you have your mindset on going to a school now, the question is like, does for the letter writer, does this mean that her parents or her mother won't support her financially or something like that? I mean, if there's a financial commitment tied to where you go, you have to listen, obviously. But if there's not, I think you go where you think you are going to be, the most happy, healthy, and ready to learn and teach. And I think the wonderful thing about college is that you can transfer, right? I mean, I think you need to give it a shot wherever. And the same goes for if you were to go to school locally, right? Like, and there's all kind of reasons one can transfer. But I actually think, you want to give wherever you go first a shot. And it just sounds like you're more likely to give that place a shot if it's somewhere you actually want to go and not someplace your mother wants you to go.
Have you had any students who come from super sheltered backgrounds? And if so, how do they handle the independence of being at college away from their families?
Oh, absolutely. And this is what I think people don't talk about when we think about academia a lot with students is, I have a lot of students, because I teach English, creative writing, and African American studies. And all of those majors are majors now that students have to, like, quote unquote, sneak and take. So if you're a STEM student, but you're really interested in creative writing, you might not let your parents know that you did creative writing until you graduate. Africana studies, completely. Like a lot of students love that material and they'll have enough classes to actually get a major in it, but they're afraid of what that major will mean to their parents. And a lot of those kids happen to be African American students, right? Because the belief is that if you major in something like African American studies and or to a lesser degree English and definitely lesser degree creative writing, you won't be employable. And so I'm just saying this, like in my experience, a lot of times kids hide a lot from their parents when they're in school. But it's so interesting to me, like the thing I think they shouldn't have to hide the most is like what they have decided to actually like pursue in terms of like a path toward learning. And that's what I see so many kids hiding from their parents because their parents are footing the bill. And the belief is they wouldn't foot the bill if they knew they were, not necessarily becoming employable, but actually becoming like, well, I don't want actually becoming like maybe a little bit more caring and emotionally intelligent, I'll say.
I'm just laughing because imagine if your big active rebellion is getting a degree in English or Africana studies and your parents are mad about it. I mean,
that's real.
Yeah. Well, I will say, letter writer, I'm encouraged that your mom said you need to think this through better. She didn't say, no, you're going to the school we chose for you. So it sounds like she may actually recognize it as your decision. My technique here would involve a little bit of manipulation. I'm always for a small white lie. So I think you say to your mom, I heard what you said, and I'm going to pray about it. And I will get back to you. You come back with your answer about the out-of-state school. And along with that, you play up all the Christian groups, the clubs, the organizations that will appeal to her. Another slightly more insidious white lie. I don't really recommend this, but I just want to share the idea I had. Pretend you have a boyfriend who's going to the in-state school and you're thinking about having sex before marriage with him. It just might be better to get away and resist the temptation. Just an idea. I can't really endorse that kind of lie, but I'm just thinking about ways to get your mom on board in ways that speak to her values, not the new values that you're obviously starting to develop.
That's great. I love that.
And like Kiese said, you can transfer. I don't think it will be the worst thing in the world if you have to start off at the in-state school again because of who's paying the bill or whatever. You can just keep your head down, do your work. And honestly, if you've been so sheltered, it might not be the worst thing in the world to make that transition to college slowly. There might be a lot that's going to shock you. There might be a lot to get used to. So play the long game here. And if you're forced to stay local, make a plan to transfer after your sophomore year.
Amen.
Okay, those are all the questions we have for this week. It's been fun and hopefully helpful. Thank you, Kiese.
Thank you so much, Jenée. I'm really appreciative that y'all made space for me.
Your advice was fantastic, as I expected. Make sure to read Kiese's books if you haven't already and follow him on Instagram at Kiese Laymon. Do you need help getting along with partners, relatives, coworkers, and people in general? Write to me. Go to slate.com/Prudie. That's slate.com/PRUDIE. The Dear Prudence column publishes every Thursday.
And if you'd like to hear your question answered on the podcast, we're looking for letter writers who would be comfortable recording their questions for the show. You can stay anonymous.
Dear Prudence is produced by Se'era Spragley Ricks and me, Jenée Desmond-Harris, with a special thanks to Maura Currie. Editorial help from Paola de Verona. Daisy Rosario is senior supervising producer, and Alicia Montgomery is Slate's VP of audio. I'm your dear Prudence, Jenée Desmond-Harris. Until next time.
We all have that friend who wakes up early to go get everyone McDonald's breakfast, while the rest of us sleep in. This is your sign to thank them. And if you're that friend, this is us saying thank you.
Just a friendly reminder that right now, get any size iced coffee before 11 a.m. for just 99 cents. And a satisfying sausage McMuffin with egg is just $2.79. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer or combo meal.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.